Spanning nearly 5 decades, Pink Floyd has released 15 studio albums, and I'm here to listen and rank them all. I've done an album discography ranking with WEEZER just prior, so be sure to check out that video after this one. The audio on that one's a little scuffy, but, it's alright. Before we jump into the first album, here's my ranking system. Each song gets a score between 0 to 10. 10 being a really good song, peak, best of the best. 8 and 9 being great. 6 and 7 being good, 5 and 4 being alright, 3 and 2 being bad, and 0 and 1 being almost unlistenable. I ranked a lot of albums in the last 2 years, so that's how I settled on this ranking system, and it's very scuffed. As with all ranking systems, music is very subjective, and for me, it was very hard to find a good ranking system that worked, but I found that the one I have now works pretty well, except Pink Floyd ruined that. So during interludes, I didn't give a number because 6 and above have made on my playlist. And with interludes, I don't often add interludes to my playlist or instrumentals of any kind, just because they add a lot to the album and they make the album so much better. But with this, it was just I couldn't find a good number to make interludes rank the album go higher or lower. So Pink Floyd really pushed me to my brink. Interludes are often given a thumbs up or a thumbs down for me. Thumbs up means it fits well with the album, it's good, but it's not my playlist. Thumbs down means it takes me out of the album a little bit, and it just doesn't work well. But there are some interludes, which we'll get to later, which are double thumbs up, yes, they're so good, they add so much to the album, it bumps up the score, and they're on my playlist. It's quite rare, but we'll get there. And then double thumbs down, it takes away from the album, and it lowers my score, which we'll also get to momentarily. So without further ado, let's get right into the Pink Floyd Ultimate Album Ranking Discography List. It all started in 1967 when Pink Floyd released The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. So this is their first studio album, and I was expecting a lot. So coming into Pink Floyd, I had only heard The Dark Side of the Moon. That's it. Before this year, that's the only one I've listened to, which is kind of crazy. I had that expectation coming into this, or I should say I had that expectation coming into this. I was not a fan of this album. I know there's some Syd Barrett fans out there, but you're not looking at one right now. There was only one song from this album that made my playlist, and that's Lucifer Sam. I gave a 7 out of 10. Everything else was pretty bad, actually. 5 songs on this album I considered bad. Over here's my actual official album ranking list of all the numbers and stuff. The X means it's the worst song on the album, the star means it's the best. So I considered 5 songs bad, which doesn't happen much for an album, but this one just did not have me going. I guess maybe my expectations were too high, or whatever, but this was a little too experimental for me. I'm still pretty fresh to experimental music, but this crossed the line for me, and I just was not a fan. Plus, I'm not on a ton of drugs, so I can't experience the album and how it was made. With all that said, I gave The Piper at the Gates of Dawn a 3.7 out of 10. Bad album. The very next year, Pink Floyd has released their second studio album, A Saucerful of Secrets. This is still only glimmers of what Pink Floyd will become, but definitely a step in the right direction. The album kicks off with the best song on the album, a 9 out of 10, Let There Be More Light. Absolute banger, really good song. But it kind of falls off in tracks 3 and 4, 2 bad songs I wasn't a fan of, and the interlude was good. Not enough to boost up the album score, but still a good interlude. The album was somewhat forgettable. I'm trying to think back to it. It's only been a week since I last listened to it, maybe 2 weeks, but it's just, I don't remember much of it. Very, very forgettable. Besides that first song. They still got a long ways to go, but overall, alright album, 5.2 out of 10. The very next year, Pink Floyd released 2 albums, starting off with More. I feel like this album should have less interludes. There was quite a bit of instrumentals that I wasn't a fan of. You can see the list over here for reference, but I wasn't a fan of a lot of the interludes, which is whatever. They were okay, the instrumentals were fine. But that's what Pink Floyd, I feel, is supposed to thrive at. They do really good at instrumentals later on, but I feel like this was just not very good as far as the interludes go. Not enough to affect the album score, but just less enjoyable. Abizabar, however you pronounce it, best song on the album, 8 out of 10. I was really concerned with the first lyrical song the Nile song. I was very concerned as that was the worst song on the album, but it is far from their worst. 6.0 out of 10, a good album.
See the splashing of the kingfisher flashing to the water.
In the same year they released their third studio album, they released their fourth. And yikes is all I gotta say. Essentially, this was a combination of just failed experiments. It was so hard to listen to, and we see our first interlude that actually affects the album score. Sisyphus Part 3 was just the worst song on the album. The song was so bad, it made me want to like take out my headphones and just sit in silence. I would rather that. I started listening to this album multiple times, and I just couldn't finish it. I couldn't get past the Sisyphus parts 1 through 4. I didn't like any of those parts. But part 3 just dragged down the album score. So after starting the album multiple times and not being able to finish, that's just like big red flag signs of a really bad album. There is one song on this album that made my playlist, which is Grantchester Meadows. I gave a 7 out of 10, so props to one song, I guess. The rest of the songs with lyrics were all right. A strong majority of the interludes were just a thumbs down, and I feel they didn't bring much to the table with this. So with my flawed system, all the songs with lyrics in them would average at a 5.0 out of 10, which is beyond generous for this album. It doesn't even deserve a 5. So with the two songs that I wanted to take out my AirPods and just sit in silence, that brought the score all the way down to a 3.5 out of 10. So the number is more or less just made up. I'm glad I'm done with it. It's over. We can move on. The very next year, Pink Floyd released Atom Heart Mother. And thank goodness, okay? This is where Pink Floyd starts to like actually sound like Pink Floyd. I liked this album. I thought it was a good album. Atom Heart Mother was a good and bad interlude. Some parts of it were like, wow, this actually might boost the album score. Like, it's that good of an interlude. And then some were just like, there's only 5 songs on the track list, which makes it feel like a short album with only 5 songs, but we'll see that a lot later on. That becomes more of a pattern with only having 5 songs and them being pretty long, equaling to a 40-minute plus album. So I'm not like opposed to that. I never found that to be too much of a problem. There are some long songs where like, I wish this was its own parts, and this could be like a 10, and then this part's like a 7 or whatever, and just it'd be easier to balance out the numbers and find a more accurate score for the album. But I don't mind the longer songs. My attention span's good enough for now. So Summer 68 I found to be the best song on the album, scoring a 9. With how few songs there are on the album, it makes sense for the score to reflect a higher number than what you might think. So the worst song on the album, being a 5, is actually pretty good. We've moved on from all the bad Pink Floyd songs. We're now getting into the all right to good phase, and it only gets up from here pretty much. So Atom Heart Mother, 6.5 out of 10. The very next year, Pink Floyd releases another album, Meddle. Yes, thank you for Meddle. Pink Floyd, thank you. This is where things get like crazy up. We have a 10 out of 10 song on this album. But before we get there, we will get through the worst song, which is the first song on the track list, One of These Days. It was alright. I gave it a 5. It was an alright song. But 2 songs later, we get Fearless. Oh, 10 out of 10. Absolute banger. Absolute cinema. What a banger song. At first, Fearless, I was giving a 9 at first, just because I didn't like the crowd chanting, and yes, I know it's recorded, blah, 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 live, whatever. It's still about, like, how does the song sound in my ears? Does it make my ears happy? And that's what music is. It's very subjective. I wasn't a fan of it at first, but it grew on me so quickly. I was like, this deserves a 10, but it's just almost not there. But it grew on me enough to where Meddle got the first ever 10 out of 10 Pink Floyd song, in my opinion, Fearless. The rest of the album was very good. two sevens and a 6, averaged to be the album score of 7.2 out of 10. Meddle, their best album so far, but we'll have to see what happens next.
Hear me shout, come on in.
I think I like this album more than most people. I don't know if that's true. I haven't talked to everyone in the world to know that for a fact. But this album, man, I am a big fan. It starts off with a good interlude, then a banger interlude, the first ever interlude or instrumental, whatever you want to call it, that made my playlist. That added so much to the album, and it was such a good transition. I haven't even mentioned this yet. Pink Floyd's transitions are so good. There's no other words. Period. That's the end of the sentence. They're so good. After the 2 interludes, the album goes into the worst song on the album, which is still on my playlist. 7 out of 10 for Burning Bridges. Good song. Then the gold, it's in the... We don't know what it's in. It's just ... That's also a 7 out of 10. Then we get their best song on the album, another 10 out of 10. What's the deal? I don't know who thought of these titles, but it's a good song. Great song. Perfect song. 10 out of 10. Childhood's End. Another 10 out of 10 song. Pink Floyd is just cooking with this album. Then it goes into a great song, then a good song, and it finishes off with a good interlude. I don't know why this isn't discussed for like one of Pink Floyd's better albums. Like I always hear like The Wall, Dark Side of the Moon, Animals, and Wish You Were Here. Like those are like the main 4 I've heard of kind of leading up into me listening to all their albums. And I don't know why no one's talking about this. 8.2 out of 10. Quite the fan. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of this album. Again, I haven't interviewed every single Pink Floyd fan ever. Good job, Pink Floyd. Yay. I don't know how to end these.
I'll see you on the dark side of the moon.
Now we get into the album that started off my whole Pink Floyd liking. The Dark Side of the Moon, released in 1973. And this album is just chef's kiss. Chef's kisses. Lots of them. It is so good. I think that this album has Pink Floyd's best song. I don't know if that's a crazy take. I'm not too in tune with the Pink Floyd fan base, seeing as they're all double my age at least. So this album starts off with a cooker, Speak to Me, good interlude, instrumental, whatever you call them. Then Breathe in the Air, great song. And then probably one of my more hot takes, On the Run was not a good interlude. It didn't minus the score of the album, but I just wasn't a fan of it. It just, I don't know. It just wasn't enough for me. I don't know. But the rest of the album is just straight cooking from then on. Time, 9 out of 10. Then their worst song on the album, Great Gig in the Sky, still my playlist, still a good song. Then Money. And then we go on probably the craziest run in all of music history with Us and Them, Any Color You Like. And then we have the best 2 songs back-to-back in a Pink Floyd album. And their best song in Pink Floyd's entire music history is Brain Damage. I don't know if that's a hot take. Again, I'm not in tune with seniors and whoever else likes Pink Floyd. No offense. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. And then Eclipse with another 10 out of 10. And those songs, I feel like that could be one song. I feel like that's the only time I'll say for Pink Floyd to be like, those 2 songs should be together. I'm glad they're separate. I don't know. I feel like they'd work really well. Obviously, the transition is like really good, but I feel it might be better as one song. I actually don't know. Fantastic album. No words besides 8.6 out of 10.
How I wish you were here.
2 years later, Pink Floyd drops another heater. Wish You Were Here. Oh my days. Great album. The track list on this is crazy. There's only 5 songs, but all of them are great or a 10 out of 10. So the first 3 songs, Shine You Crazy Diamond, parts 1 through 5, Welcome to the Machine, and Have a Cigar, all 8 out of 10. All 8 out of 10s. They are really good. My least favorite was Welcome to the Machine, but still an 8 out of 10. And that being the worst song on the album, just, oh, so good. And then we have another Pink Floyd 10 out of 10 song with Wish You Were Here. And it ends off with a 9 out of 10 with Shine on You Crazy Diamond, parts 6 through 9. I love hearing the story about it and how they were singing the song about Syd Barrett, and then he came to the studio, they didn't recognize him. I'm sure if you're watching this, you know the story. But oh man, it is just so It's so good. I was like, is this better than Dark Side of the Moon? Like, that's where my thought process was here. Like, it was like, wow, it blew me away, the album. This is such a good album. Uh, Again, no words besides 8.6 out of 10. So it has the exact same score as Dark Side of the Moon. Will they top it in the next one? This is where my Pink Floyd thoughts start to get like boiling hot takes. Like this could be bad. This could be detrimental to my health. This album, another 5-song track list, features Pigs on the Wing 1, Dogs, Pigs 3 different ones, Sheep, and Pigs on the Wing 2. A lot of people that I've seen online say this is their best work and their best song is featured in this album, which I don't think either of those things are true. Don't get me wrong, this is a great album, but not their best. Might not even be in their top 3. So it starts off with 2 great songs, Pigs on the Wing 1 and Dogs. I know that a lot of people love Dogs and think it's probably their best work. 8 out of 10. It's still a great song, but again, maybe the 17-minute track length made it like hard to put a number on it, whatever, blah blah blah. I'm sorry. 8 out of 10 was the best I could do for it. Not the best I could do, but 8 out of 10 was, I felt, was fair, which I completely understand people thinking it's like a 10 out of 10. Like around the 3-minute mark, it's like if 10 out of 10, probably right there. But again, there's so much time that they got to fill up in a 17-minute song where it's like, can they keep that 10 out of 10 going, you know? It was, don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic song to listen to, and I consistently listen to it. It's really good, but it's not a 10 out of 10, I don't think. And the worst song on the album, Pigs, 3 different ones, 7 out of 10. Still a good song, and that being the worst is not a complaint. Sheep, same score. But then we have another Pink Floyd 10 out of 10 with Pigs on the Wing, Dos, 2, for those who don't speak Spanish. Pigs on the Wing 1 and Pigs on the Wing 2 being like a 9 and like a 10. Definitely strange for them to be like different numbers. But I feel like Pigs on the Wing 2 just has the slight edge. I don't know, man. I can't. This is kind of around the part where my videos so far have started to like crumble, as in like that's just my thoughts on it and deal with it. So those are my thoughts and deal with it. Great album. 8.2 out of 10. We don't need no education. 2 years later, Pink Floyd releases what other people call their magnum opus. I strongly disagree. I know. Another hot take from the kid. Yes, I know. Whatever. We'll move on from that. My first impression of this album was before I even knew that Pink Floyd made it. There was this TV show on Netflix called The Unlisted. I watched it when I was, I don't remember, younger. But the theme song is Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. However, Part 2 is the worst of that Another Brick in the Wall Parts 1 through 3. It's still a great song, 8 out of 10. But Part 1 is a 9 and Part 3 is a 10 out of 10. But not the best on the album. The best song on the album is Mother, which is right after Part 2, ironically. Maybe you've noticed a pattern by now, but I like the stuff where like they sing in the songs. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the instrumentals, and we'll get to that in their last album. I really appreciate when they have long instrumentals and vocals, good vocals. I feel like a lot of songs do have a good balance of both. Mother has more singing, granted, but stuff like that I tend to like more. But there was no bad instrumentals in this album. The Thin Ice, The Happiest Days of Our Lives, and Goodbye Cruel World, all good songs, but not enough to boost the ranking. So Part 1 average score of 7.6 out of 10, but there's a whole nother part that I haven't even talked about yet. So the album is divided into Disc 1 and Disc 2. So Disc 2 is much worse, in my opinion. There are 2 great songs on the second half, Comfortably Numb and The Show Must Go On, 9 and 10, respectively. But there's so much songs that are just like all right. Hey You, Nobody Home, Vera, In the Flesh, Run Like Hell, and Waiting for the Worms are all right. But there is a song that is bad. We have not got a bad Pink Floyd song in quite a few albums, but The Trial is where it breaks the pattern. 2 out of 10, bad song, not a fan, and the album ends off with a bad interlude, Outside the Wall. Good title name for the album, but not a good interlude. So disc 2, respectively, got a 5.2 out of 10. How is this their magnum opus? I don't know, okay? I don't know. Definitely not their magnum opus. So overall final score of The Wall, 6.5 out of 10. 4 years later, Pink Floyd is back with The Final Cut, which is not their final song in their discography, but definitely a spot in their discography. I don't know what I'm saying. The Final Cut featured some highs and lows. The album started off with a great song of The Post-War Dream, but then it went to an alright song of Your Possible Past, and there's a few good and alright songs kind of tossed in the middle, but we did have an interlude that made the playlist. Southampton Dock, great interlude. I was like, I really enjoyed it. Great interlude. Loved it. Added to the album. Good enough for my ears to be happy. I don't know. And then the album has its best song, named after the album title, The Final Cut. 9 out of 10. Great song. Almost a 10 out of 10, but not quite. Very close though. Maybe the more I listen to it, the more I'll get into it, but great song. And it ended with a few good songs, but with all the all-rights kind of tossed in the middle there, the album only scored a 6.1 out of 10. Half a decade later, Pink Floyd comes back with a momentary lapse of reason. This album, good album. Better than it was. Okay, well we'll get to the score. This album features 2 10 out of 10 songs: Learning to Fly, the best on the album, and On the Turning Away. 2 10 out of 10 songs. Awesome. What is this absolute, like, beautifulness that my ears are hearing? And it was Learning to Fly. The rest of the album is mostly instrumental, so it was kind of hard to put a good number on this album. But there was 2 interludes that I didn't like, which were so bad, which dropped the album score. A New Machine Part 1 and A New Machine Part 2. Both of them were enough to drop the album score by a few points, which we'll get to later. The rest of the songs with lyrics on it are pretty good, except for the Dogs of War. That got a 5, alright song, whatever. With A New Machine Part 1 and 2, with those songs dropping, the album score went from a 7.3 to a 7.0, which isn't a big drop, but I felt like it was a fair drop for what it was. Learning to Fly had to be on an album that was, like, good, so there's no way that song's on an album and it's a bad album. Holy crap, Mr. Floyd, will you ever miss again? It was just so good. There are only 2 interludes in this album, which kind of surprised me with how often they do instrumentals, but yeah, there's only 2 in this one. Cluster 1 and Marooned, both good. Not enough to boost the score, but good interludes. But we have 2 10 out of 10 songs on this album. What Do You Want From Me, being their best, and Take It Back. I might be overhyping it, but really good songs. But there was a few alright songs kind of in the middle. A Great Day for Freedom and High Hopes. Both alright songs, High Hopes being the worst one. With a few goods and a few greats even tossed in there. Just such a good album. 7.3 out of 10. It's louder than words, this thing that we do. 2 decades later. 2 decades later, Pink Floyd releases their last album. I know a lot of people don't count this because it wasn't really, like, new. There was, like, a lot of old recordings. I didn't do much research, okay? I could be lying to you, but whatever. Just a bunch of instrumentals is what this album is. I don't give instrumentals numbers, so this was a very fun album to rank. So as you see beside me, with all the scores written down, you might be like, what in the world is happening here? What's going on? We know that 3 triangles means good enough to make the playlist. And in the first 4 songs, 3 of them made my playlist. Like, these instrumentals are so good. But we do have 1 song in there that is a 10 out of 10 instrumental. This is the first time I've ever given that out to any song ever. But Amnesia, Side 2, Part 4, Amnesia, 10 out of 10 instrumental, best on the album. After that, the album kind of slows down as far as, like, interludes that made my playlist. all these interludes were still like really good. Like there was no bad interlude in this entire album. There was only one song that had words in it, and it was Louder Than Words, is what the song title was called. And that got an 8 out of 10. So using my very scuffed system, this album scored an 8.0 out of 10. However, because that's only one out of like however many songs are all instrumentals, this album score I had to like change accordingly. So what I did is I looked at the overall Pink Floyd like ranking in order, whatever. Where did it fit? Did it go above this album? Was it worse than this album? My whole ranking system doesn't really work with this album, so I kind of just pulled a number out of my butt, and that number was 7.2 out of 10. With that said, the Pink Floyd discography is done. I listened to all 15 of their albums. Here's my overall ranking.
See the splashing of the kingfisher flashing to the water.
Let me shout, come on in. How I wish you were here. I'll see you on the dark side of the moon.
If you want to see a playlist with all the Pink Floyd songs that made my playlist, check out my Spotify. Link in the description below. There is a playlist I have of just all the Pink Floyd songs I added. So listen up to that. And here is my top 10 Pink Floyd songs. I don't know how long I'm going to leave it on the screen for, but it's there. And with that, I cannot wait till Pink Floyd goes on tour. I can't wait to see them live. I just got word that I'm a few decades late to see them live. I guess I gotta listen to the Live at Pompeii version.